Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are live streaming right across the world right now, here in the Zoom room, as well as on YouTube and social media. With that in mind, type in where you're watching us from in the meantime, but we're going to put a quick timer on, which is your opportunity to check if you have the people you've invited on today, if they're here live with us. So we'll be live in just a minute. Alrighty, now some people that are online right now may or may not speak fluent English, and apparently my Aussie accent is quite fast. With that in mind, we do have closed captions. So if you want to, you can actually follow us on with reading on YouTube and in the Zoom room right now. So with that in mind, have a quick listen to this.
Por favor, vaya a la parte inferior de la pantalla en Zoom o YouTube y haga clic en subtítulos para leer en español.
Kérlek menj a képernyő aljára, a Zoomon vagy a YouTube-on, a Closed Caption részre, és ott el tudod olvasni magyarul a feliratot.
Silakan klik di layar bawah pada Zoom atau YouTube dan klik caption untuk membaca dalam bahasa Indonesia.
Pour les sous-titres en français, veuillez cliquer au bas de votre écran Zoom ou YouTube sur CC ou Closed Captions.
Zoom または YouTube の画面の下部に移動し、字幕をクリックして日本語で読んでください。
请到屏幕底部點閱隱藏字幕以閱讀中文。
Παρακαλώ πηγαίνετε στο κάτω μέρος της οθόνης, στο Zoom ή στο YouTube και κάντε κλικ στους υπότιτλους για να τα διαβάσετε στα ελληνικά.
请到屏幕底部点击隐藏字幕以阅读中文。
אנא עברו לתחתית המסך בזום וביוטיוב ולחצו על תרגום לכתוביות בעברית.
Proszę zejść na dół ekranu na Zoomie lub YouTubie i kliknąć napisy, żeby przeczytać po polsku.
Beautiful. So welcome online, ladies and gentlemen. For those people that are here for the first time, my name's Michael Firth, one of the founding field advisory board members of the company and one of the crowns. And it's my pleasure to be your MC today. What I love is the fact that we're in 74 countries around the world. When I hear the languages in that translation and I heard Irene talking in Greek, well, I'll be doing an event in Greece straight after the Diamond Retreat in October, which has just been organised, which is exciting. Looking forward to that as we get around the world. And we've got people who've typed in that they're from California, from Canada, Ontario, Calgary, Pontypool, we've got Western Australia, we've got South Carolina, Minnesota, we have Mexico, Surabaya, Indonesia, Toronto, Canada, Virginia, Perth down under. We have GA, I think that's, I can't remember, but anyway, it's where Rhonda is. The Caribbean or the Caribbean, we've got people from everywhere, which is awesome. Now, today, this session is being live streamed, which is great because today we're blessed to hear from Dr. Johnathan Glass. Now, for those of you that don't know, I've heard rave reviews about Dr. Glass from the team around the world. And today he's going to be talking about the liver's secret weapon and unlocking the power of glutathione. Now, you may or may not know this, but Johnathan's also the author of a book called The Total Life Cleanse. So he is actually an acupuncturist as well as a naturopath, and he's going to enlighten a lot of us with some knowledge that we need to know about this amazing molecule called glutathione. So with that in mind, I'm going to hand the call to Johnathan Glass. Over to you, Dr.
Thank you, Michael. Happy to be here. Thank you so much. So tonight, I really wanted to talk about the liver because of the amazing impact that glutathione has on the liver. So I'm going to talk about the liver, and then we're going to talk a little bit about how glutathione impacts the liver and the best source of glutathione in order to support the liver. So the liver, most people know, but some people don't know, the liver sits right on the right side of the body, right sort of underneath the right ribs. And it is an amazing organ. It is probably the most remarkable organ that we have in one sense. It's the only organ that can be regenerated. You can cut the liver in half and it'll grow back. So it's such an important organ that it can do that. So some of the functions of the liver are one of the main functions of the liver is detoxification. Detoxification of chemicals, heavy metals, herbicides, pesticides. There's over 100,000 chemicals in the environment. Only 20,000 of those chemicals have actually been tested for human safety, and they've never been tested synergistically. And these days they're finding in the umbilical cord anywhere from 200 to over 1,000 chemicals of even just a newborn baby. So the liver, its function has different phases. Phase one sort of extracts the toxin from the food or in the blood, and then phase two, it breaks it down in such a way that the body can carry it out through the bile into the intestines. So that's another thing that the liver does. It's really, really important. It creates bile, and the bile actually comes from broken down red blood cells called bilirubin. Turns into turns into bile. That bile goes into the gallbladder, and it carries toxins from the liver into the intestines. The bile has a very important function also of lubricating the intestines. So many times when people are constipated or bowel issues, it's actually because the bile is too sludgy or too thick, and a person is not making, the liver's not able to make enough bile in order to lubricate the intestines. Another thing that the liver does is that it stores sugar. So for example, if we're busy throughout the day and our blood sugar goes low, one of the things that happens is the adrenals will kick in, stimulate the liver, and then it'll stimulate the liver to release sugar into the blood to give energy to the cells and to the brain. So that's really important. It also stores iron. And that's also really important because obviously iron, in one sense, is the most important mineral because it's that mineral that helps the hemoglobin attract oxygen and carry oxygen to all the cells. And we're going to make a connection with that and glutathione in just a little while. One of the things that's really interesting is that in our modern times, most people in a year get more iron than we're supposed to in an entire lifetime. And that partly is because so much of our food is inappropriately fortified with forms of iron, non-heme iron, in forms that are very difficult to break down and utilize. And so it gets stored in the liver, which adds to oxidation and toxicity in the body. So those are some of the main functions of the liver. Now, the other thing is that when we eat food, the food goes into the stomach and then it gets broken down to some degree, then it goes into the small intestine. And the small intestine has these little villi and microvilli, which are like roots of the tree, the internal tree. It extracts nutrients, passes on the rest to the large intestine, extracts those nutrients, sends it up through a vessel into the liver, and the liver has to transform those nutrients into a form that the body can utilize in order to create healthy blood. So the liver is so, so important. Now, how is the liver impacted? The liver is impacted, number one, by toxins. Again, by chemicals, heavy metals, herbicides, pesticides, cleaning products, so many things. Like we said, there's over 100,000 chemicals in the environment. Never before in human history has the liver had to work as hard as it does now. It's an extreme situation. The other thing is we've probably heard of with Steve is that the wireless technology, EMFs, all these things impact the body and creates a tremendous amount of oxidation, which means the liver has to work harder to detoxify on that level too. Now, another thing that happens with the liver is that stress itself can create a tremendous amount of stress on the liver. So emotional stress, mental stress creates a lot of stress on the liver. When we're stressed, the body makes a lot of chemicals and hormones, adrenaline, noradrenaline, epinephrine, so many different chemicals that the liver then has to utilize or break down and process. Every hormone that the body secretes, once it's finished, has to go through the liver, has to break it down into a form that then the liver can then break down into particles in phase 2 liver detoxification, and then take that into the bile and excrete it through the small intestine and the large intestine. So, for example, women oftentimes have hormonal issues, or they have all the estrogen that a woman makes, and men's hormones also. They all have to be broken down in the liver. Some of the problems that women can have with menstruation, with fibroids, with over cramping, emotional issues, which we'll touch on in a minute, all are related to the liver and the liver's ability to break those hormones down and excrete them to transform them into a form that's not harmful for the body, and then eliminate it from the system. And I mentioned before, iron overload. Iron overload is a big, big problem these days. A lot of people may show in their blood work, for example, that they're low in iron. And what is the general thing that that will be recommended? Just take more iron. Take a pill with iron in it. In many cases, although someone may temporarily feel better, what happens is over time, the iron creates a tremendous amount of oxidation, toxicity. The liver stores it. We also hear a lot about fatty liver disease. Fatty liver disease used to be called alcoholic fatty liver disease. Now we have a whole category, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. And in a very simple way, the liver is very intelligent. So the liver is trying to break down toxins. But what happens is that if the liver can't keep up with its ability to excrete toxins, it will store things in the liver. It's sort of thinking, at some point when I'm not overburdened, then I'm going to excrete these toxins. But if that time never comes because we're being exposed constantly, and maybe we're eating a very poor diet, many people are eating lots of junk food, they're drinking too much alcohol, they're eating way too much sugar, especially corn syrup, and of course, genetically modified foods and heavy metals and chemicals and pesticides and herbicides. The liver becomes burdened. So the liver is intelligent. It will conceal those products in the tissues in a compartment of the liver, and then eventually it will seal it off with fat. And then the liver becomes fatty. And in doing that, for a little while, it's not a problem. But if that fat becomes more so and more so, then it starts taking away from the liver's ability to actually function properly. So one of the things, again, that I mentioned before is the importance of bile. Many people sort of think of, well, what is bile? Why is it so important? The liver has these little ducts that go into the gallbladder that release bile, and it drips it down into the gallbladder. And what the gallbladder does, it's a little sac. And when we eat fat, especially, it will secrete that bile into the small intestine. And when the fat is released from the stomach into the small intestine, then that bile breaks down, it emulsifies the fat so that the body can then utilize that fat as a nutrient. Now, a lot of times people are eating a lot of junky fat, hydrogenated fats, a lot of the plant oils, which are very, very difficult to break down and utilize, highly, highly oxidative. They've been overheated, overtreated, over-purified, over-filtered. And now we have fat that now the liver and the gallbladder have to work that much harder to use and to break down. So sometimes the gallbladder becomes congested, or the bile ducts become congested. And now we have a liver that's stagnant. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. So another thing that I wanted to touch on, which I find really fascinating, is from the perspective of Chinese medicine, which is something that I practice, and Ayurveda, which is a system of medicine from India. The liver is looked at from many different angles. And from a Chinese medicine perspective and an Ayurvedic perspective, every organ has physical, mental, and emotional correspondences. And in Chinese medicine and in Ayurveda, it's even said, and on a spirit level correspondence. And I'll explain that. So what that means is that every organ has an emotional correspondence to it. So every organ holds different types of emotions. For example, the lungs are said to hold grief. The kidneys are said to hold fear. The stomach is said to hold worry. And what does the liver do? The liver holds there's always a positive and a negative. The negative side is that it holds anger and frustration. So when someone's liver becomes more toxic, guess what happens? We tend to become more frustrated. We tend to become more easily irritated. We tend to become stagnant in our emotions. The liver is also described to be that organ which circulates the qi in a smooth way. And what the heck does that mean? What it means that we have energy that flows through the body. This is what we're doing when we're practicing acupuncture. We are trying to move the bioelectric energy around the body in very intelligent ways. The body is perfectly designed by the divine. It's an amazing, intelligent organism. But when we interfere with the natural intelligence of the body, things become stagnant. And in Chinese medicine and in Ayurveda, there's something called stagnant liver qi. And all that means is that a liver that has become overburdened. Now, again, from these systems, we can look at the toxin of anger, the toxin of frustration, the toxin of over emotional stress can actually impact the liver itself in a negative way. So it's definitely seen as a toxin. So we have to look at it like toxins can make us more irritable, and irritability or anger or frustration can make us more toxic. So that's why it's always good to work on our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being, because by doing that, we can support the liver in the best way possible. The liver also has the property and the ability of what its main function is. It's also creativity, the emotion or feeling of hopefulness and excitement. There's a word in Chinese that is called the hun. The hun is stored in the liver. What does that mean? The hun is that part of us that has excitement, as a feeling of hopefulness, the interest in life, the desire to experience life, the desire to learn more, the desire to be the best that we can be. It's like when you're a little kid and you're excited for life. That's what the liver holds. So emotionally and spiritually, we can see how incredibly important the liver is. Without that, without a healthy, happy liver, it's very difficult to function well in this world. We lose our vitality, we lose our creativity, we lose our hopefulness. Oftentimes, from a Chinese medicine perspective, a stagnant liver qi causes depression. Because sometimes depression is really, it's like our hopes and dreams are being suppressed, or we're not able to move forward in life. Another property of the liver, another quality, we call it a correspondence of the liver, is the capacity to plan. It means the vision for life. What is our vision? And that could be in a given day. It can be our vision for life. What do we want out of our life? And our capacity to be clear, to have the vision about what steps we need to take in order to make those things happen. So this is the liver. The liver is so important. Many, many creative people have very interesting livers. Now, there's even a time of day that corresponds with the liver, and that's between 1 and 3 in the morning. And I had a student once when I was teaching her this, and it was in a class. And when we said that, we heard a gasp. She worked in a liver ward at a hospital, and she said, "That's crazy. At 3 in the morning, or anytime between 2 and 3 in the morning, is when most of the liver emergencies happen." Because that's the time of day, and in Chinese medicine, it's called the biological clock. We understand that different organs are empowered at that time. So if an organ is sick, it will manifest those symptoms more so at that time. Also, many creative people we know that tend to stay up late. We think of artists and poets and music and songwriters. They tend to like to stay up late in the wee hours of the evening and going into the morning because there's a lot of creative energy at that time. I don't recommend it. The liver is really meant, what is supposed to happen at night is to use in one sense, our creative energy while we're sleeping to go in, and while the body's sleeping, it's described that the blood pools to the liver and the liver is able to detoxify at night. So that's why it's another reason it's really good to not overeat right before bed, because now the body has to focus on digestion and so many other things. But if we don't eat too much at night, we don't, certainly don't eat junk food at night, eat fairly clean, try to eat a few hours before you go to sleep so that the body can really focus on detoxification, natural detoxification, and also supporting the immune system. A lot of the immune activities. It's described that people have parasites. They come out at night, so then the body can begin to handle the different viruses and bacteria and pathogens and toxins and all the things that I've mentioned before. That's meant to be happening while we're sleeping. So sleep is hugely important for the liver. Another thing that's very important for the liver is circulation. So this is a real benefit of exercise, is to getting out. And when we exercise, it's described that we move the energy of the liver. Oftentimes people can feel very frustrated or pent up, and they go to the gym, or they go for a run, or they go for a swim, or they do some yoga, or they do some deep breathing, that type of thing, break a sweat, and the liver calms down, the circulation, or I'll use the word chi, the flow of chi, the flow of bioelectric energy in the body improves when we exercise. So it's really, the liver is hugely, hugely important in all these areas. And again, creativity and hopefulness. This is one of the biggest emphasis that I'd like to make tonight is we talk a lot about toxins, we talk a lot about the physical, but when we realize how important the liver, right? It gives us life. When we take good care of our liver, physically, mentally, emotionally, then we have a much greater capacity for that hun, for that excitement for life, for that mental clarity, for that vision for our life, and for that hopefulness, for that excitement that I mentioned. Now, the gallbladder is connected to the liver directly, and the function of the gallbladder is actually our capacity to make decisions. Now, it's interesting because the gallbladder helps us to be decisive. One of the characteristics of a weak person with a weak gallbladder is that they can either become overly indecisive or they can make bad decisions. They can make overly emotional or very quick decisions. So that connection between having a plan, having a good plan, and also making decisions in our life day to day, month to month, year to year, that support the vision, that support the plan in our life. Okay, so things that cause toxins to the liver, alcohol, things like too much marijuana has a burden on the liver. When people use marijuana too much, it actually burdens the liver significantly. They may feel very creative while they're using the marijuana because that does do that, but it tightens the liver, it causes toxins, it puts burden on the liver, and then the next day, the person is probably feeling less creative, less hopeful than the night before when they were feeling all open and creative and things like that. So the liver is so important. I just really want to emphasize how important it is, not just physically, and it's hugely important physically, but again, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. And the spiritual connection also is that hopefulness for life, that zest for life, that desire to know more, to learn more, to connect, to go for something higher in life, to make that spiritual connection. It's all directly related to the liver. So what we have with I wanted to talk a little bit about glutathione right now and touch on our incredible product. Is that what does glutathione do? It is, along with thinning the bile, supporting that bile, and there's wonderful herbs out there, gentian, dandelion, different herbs that are out there that help thin the bile, that help support the liver, like that. But without proper detoxification, then the liver is going to back up. We're going to become stagnant, and all those things that I mentioned, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, will become impacted. This is the great importance of the incredible molecule, the incredible substance, glutathione. And by the way, the liver makes more glutathione than every other part of the body. Every cell makes a little bit, but the liver makes the most. The liver is a self-cleaning mechanism. Okay, the liver is always focusing on detoxifying itself. So someone just mentioned what happens when you get rid of a gallbladder. Well, the liver will still drip bile. It'll go into the small intestine. It won't be as coordinated. But the good news is you still have the energetic function of a gallbladder, the decision-making capacity, but sometimes that can be impaired a little bit, and people may just have to work a little bit harder. And sometimes breaking down fat can be a little bit more difficult if someone has had their gallbladder removed. Sometimes that's a necessary thing in certain situations. And there's nutrients, there's things that you can do to support if there's someone who's lost their gallbladder for various reasons. So glutathione, a couple other things. Physically, what does the liver correspond to? Well, it's corresponding to the tendons, the ligaments, the what we call the woody structures of the body. So when people get very tight, because the liver controls what's called like I said before, the smooth flow of energy, or chi, that means our fluidity, our flexibility, physically, mentally, emotionally, the flexibility in the body. So that relates to the ligaments, the tendons of the body. When the tendons are very tight or constricted, that's often when people have injuries, in the ligaments or the tendons. This is related to the liver. It's also related to the eyes, the physical eyes, and the vision, not just the vision of planning, but literally the physical eyes. When we do cleanses or detoxification, sometimes temporarily we find that for a few days, people's eyes get a little blurry, or they almost seem to be getting worse, and then they start clearing up. As the liver gets happier, the eyes, believe it or not, can start improving to some degree, or they actually will go to the greatest capacity of their functionality at the moment, whatever the condition of the eye is. So oftentimes, even having a healthy liver can lead to improved vision to some degree because of the liver's connection with vision. So those are the basic correspondences in Chinese medicine and in Ayurveda that a lot of people don't really know about. So that's why I wanted to share this information tonight, how hugely important the liver is for our well-being. So in terms of glutathione, what is it doing? Well, we all know, or most of us know, it is the mother of all antioxidants. And antioxidants are those wonderful molecules that help when a cell or a molecule is missing an electron. So it adds an electron so that that cell becomes usable, functional, healthy again. Excuse me. So when toxins or too much burden on the body, that creates a lot of oxidation. Oxidation is normal. It's sort of analogous to if you're driving a car, there's going to be some exhaust, and that exhaust will be released into the body. But if there's too much exhaust, it creates toxicity. It creates lack of functionality. It creates damaged cells and damaged tissues. So we want to have that balance between oxidation and or free radical damage, free radicals, and antioxidation. So this is what glutathione does. Glutathione also helps vitamin C, vitamin E, other natural antioxidants that we get from our food that helps to replenish and make those antioxidants function more effectively, efficiently, and last longer. So without glutathione, we can be taking tons of vitamin C and other antioxidants, but if we don't have enough of glutathione, they will not work very well. Glutathione also helps with detoxification, helping the body in phase 1, phase 2, liver detoxification to attach to those heavy metals, which are abound everywhere today. We have lead, we have mercury, lots of mercury, we have cadmium, we have arsenic, which is very prominent in areas that use pesticides. So the body is constantly being barraged with these heavy metals. A heavy metal is just a mineral that is heavy, it's big, and it sits on the cell wall, and it interferes with cellular communication. It interferes with the body's ability to take in nutrients, to take in thyroid hormone, to take in oxygen, and take in nutrients into the cell. And also it can prevent the body's ability to excrete toxins. So these heavy metals can become very problematic. Another thing that glutathione does, it helps with the immune system. And there's the regulation of the immune system. It helps with red blood cell production. How does it do that? Without glutathione, and this is amazing, without glutathione, the oxygen that we breathe in, you can have a ton of oxygen that you breathe in. It will not attach to the red blood cell. It will not enter into the hemoglobin that then carries oxygen to every cell of the body. So we need glutathione in order to healthily and efficiently oxygenate all the cells of our body and to bring nutrients to all the cells of our body. When the blood becomes toxic, there's something that happens. Each red blood cell is meant to be an individual unit. And a red blood cell is sort of shaped like a little disc, and it's not hollow, but it's thin in the middle. And they're meant to be able to swivel throughout the bloodstream, and even the little tiny capillaries in the extremities of your fingers and toes and your eyes. Those red blood cells are meant to swivel in there, and they're meant to be independent, and they each carry oxygen and they each carry nutrients. When the blood becomes toxic, what happens is that the red blood cells clump together and it looks like a stack of pancakes. And now we have red blood cells that are all stuck together. This is called sticky blood. And it goes through, so now your red blood cells are going through the system all stuck together. You're not getting as much oxygen. You're not getting the blood flow to the extremities. This is one reason why people start getting problems, neuropathies in their fingers and their toes and things like that, because the red blood cells aren't feeding the tissues in the extremities, and over time those tissues become damaged. And this happens with conditions like diabetes commonly and due to toxins. So again, glutathione can help purify the blood, purify the liver, and help give us healthy blood. In doing that, what does healthy blood do? We can pretty much say that healthy red blood cells will lead to healthy white blood cells. Healthy white blood cells are, what the immune system is related to. So glutathione has a very powerful effect of regulating the immune system. And what does that mean? So when somebody gets, say, a flu or some kind of other virus, we've had many viruses the last few years that we all have heard about. So the immune system will react. It's meant to have an inflammatory, temporary inflammatory reaction. It gets excited, it goes there, it sees what's foreign, what's not meant to be in the body, it attacks, it does its job. But what happens is when we don't have enough glutathione, then what happens is the body stays in an inflammatory stage, and the body keeps inflaming, keeps overreacting, and then people get these secondary infections, or they can get over the main infection, but then they get a secondary infection. They get something that causes more problems down the road, and the body is meant to, once the infection is over, down regulate and then start clearing out all the debris of all the white blood cells. That's what mucus is. You know, when someone gets a cold or a flu, at some point they create a lot of mucus. A lot of that is just your white blood cells that your body has used in order to handle the, you know, the invasion of a virus, for example, and now the body's getting rid of it. But if the body doesn't have enough glutathione, then the tendency is to stay in that inflammatory stage and not go into that cleansing, clearing stage, and it can cause a lot of problems. And for viruses, this is in Chinese medicine, for example, there's 6 stages of a virus, and sometimes the body will get stuck in 4 or 5 and never quite clear things out because it stayed in that inflammatory stage. Glutathione is huge in terms of regulating that immune system so that the body can clear it up, can handle it, and then clear out everything that's meant to be cleared out. So it's hugely important for the immune system. And as I mentioned before, again, which it's worth mentioning again, is this oxygenation. Again, it's like Velcro. Without that glutathione, you cannot attach the oxygen molecule to the red blood cell, and thereby the body will not be getting enough oxygen in the process. Oxygen, of course, is hugely important. And some of the viruses that people have experienced is they almost feel like they're gasping for breath. And this is because sometimes these viruses will actually interfere or they will cause a diminishment of glutathione. Or some people that have an overreaction, if they start out with low stores of glutathione, they're not going to get enough oxygen in the red blood cells. They're not going to be able to regulate the immune system. So therefore going to feel like they're gasping for breath, or they're having a really hard time breathing. It's not just because they have a lung infection or a lung issue. It's because they have a red blood cell lack of oxygen issue in the red blood cells. So we can see again how incredibly important glutathione is for the body. So now to get to our amazing, amazing product. Many of you perhaps have tried other products before. Perhaps we've tried things like precursors like N-acetylcysteine or milk thistle or turmeric or gentian or things like that. These are all wonderful. And I would never say, you know, don't use those herbs or nutrients. They all have many benefits to them. They're precursors for the production, the body's ability to make glutathione. As we know, every 10 years, the glutathione capacity in a human being decreases by about 10%. So while we get to our 60s and 70s, I'm 65 right now, so our glutathione stores tend to go down. Another thing that decreases glutathione stores are all those things that I talked about: stress, toxins, mental, physical, emotional stress and toxins on the body. All those things, excessive hormones will cause that. A fatty liver will cause that. So what we're trying to do is, by giving the body what it needs, then what happens is all those functions that I mentioned, the antioxidant function, the detoxification function, the immunity function, the oxygenation function, the anti-inflammatory function, the regulation of the immune system, all those things will be improved or can be improved by increased glutathione. So this is why I think, I believe this, that our product is probably the most significant product of the modern age, of the times that we're living in right now. It pinpoints every single one of those topics that I mentioned tonight. Even we're touching on, like I said, on those emotional, mental issues, even on the spirit level, even on the zest and the zip for life. What we're talking about, how we feel, our excitement, happiness, vigor, hope, desire to keep moving forward, have the courage to move forward in our life, is all related to the liver. So our product, because of its delivery system, because of the genius of it, of the miracle of it, of the amazingness of it, if there was one product, if someone asked me if there was one product that I would, if I could only use one product in my practice, it would be our product. It would be the NutraSwish, because of all the functions and abilities that this product gives us. You know, the design of this product, the way that it gets in, the small particle size, a very, very small particle size, the fact that it's sublingual, meaning so much of it gets right into the bloodstream immediately, gets immediately into the red blood cell, immediately supports the mitochondria, which is the energy engines of the cell. Okay, it immediately supports the anti-inflammatory, the antioxidation properties, and it supports all those other things that I'm talking about in a way that really works. You know, I've always avoided it. I never recommended glutathione capsules. I never even recommended sublingual or a liposomal glutathione, because I just didn't find it that effective. When I learned about NutraSwish, a light went off in me. I said, I have to try this product. And I do something called kinesiology muscle testing. Every single person that I muscle test loves this product. Every single person. And when I test people, when I do my work and someone's liver is showing weak, or when they have other issues related to toxins that I find through the process that I use, 99% of the time, I will recommend that they use NutraSwish to support their liver, to support healthy detoxification, to support this oxygenation, to support the red blood cells to become independent little red blood cells that can swivel through the body and carry all those nutrients and oxygen throughout the whole system. It's such an important product, and I can't overemphasize the importance of this product and the blessing of this product in our lives. And none of us should feel shy about sharing it, because in the day, in the world that we're living in right now, like I said before, never before in human history have we been exposed to so many physical toxins and mental emotional toxins. And we all know what that's about. There's so many different levels of it, whether it's, you know, personal life, you know, the stresses of our normal personal life, but we have all kinds of stressors. People are, you know, connected to the internet, and they're watching the news all the time. There's so many stressful things. I was watching a psychiatrist the other day, said human beings weren't really designed to know everything that's going on all over the world, but now we do. And, you know, years ago, it was like, well, you'd watch the news once a day. Now it's in front of us 24 hours a day. And sometimes people are up into the wee hours of the night on their phones, you know, watching videos, watching the news. These are all imprinting our consciousness and putting stress on the system, increasing cortisol levels, which also puts stress on the liver. So it's a really, really important product. And again, none of us should feel shy to, I mean, in other words, we have the right with this product to feel bold, to feel excited, to feel like we're really doing something really helpful for a person that we share it with. Everybody on the planet could use this product, because everybody is stressed in ways that never before has it been an issue. So I think that's pretty much where I'd like to leave it tonight, is to emphasize that point, is that, again, don't hesitate sharing this product because of how important it really is. Important on every level. And again, finally, not just on a physical level, and it is so important on a physical level, all those things that I mentioned: antioxidant, detoxification, immunity, oxygenation, anti-inflammatory. Those are all the properties of glutathione. And our product, the NutraSwish, delivers glutathione in a way that nothing ever has on the planet before, even compared to intravenous. You know, people sometimes go and get injections or intravenous glutathione. This is better because you can take it every day. You don't have to go somewhere. You don't have to pay 100, 200, sometimes 300 where you're going just for, you know, some glutathione. It works better. It gets in your cell more effectively. It gets utilized by the body instantly, practically instantly, and we can take it every day. everybody that I've ever seen in this company looks great. They sound great. I've been, on these videos for a couple of years now. Everybody, practically speaking, is beginning to look younger. It's crazy. I've never seen so many people look vibrant and healthy, and it's because of these products, not just the skin product, which is amazing, but if we all know how powerful that skin product is, if it's doing it on your skin, just think what it's doing in your cells. So it's a super powerful product. Don't be shy about sharing it. And so that's my message for tonight. Thank you so much.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Johnathan, I did not know how great this was going to be. So guys, if you love that, and I did, I just couldn't get enough of that, type yes in the chat. And, I'd love to extend an invitation to Johnathan to pick another organ in the body and do something exactly like this again. I think so many people got so much out of it. In fact, type in the chat if this was you. While I was listening and I heard about my liver, I was like giving my liver a bit of a hug and I thought I need to swish some more. So I think I swished 2 times during this call, just going, I think my liver needs a little bit more. So that was fantastic. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I know some people typed in the chat, will this be in the members group? Just so we're clear, we have the members group, NUMI members. If you're not in that and you're a NUMI member, what are you doing? You're supposed to be on the NUMI member group in Facebook. That's where we put the training videos. Then we have the NUMI New You group, which is the prospecting group, the official one from the company, the only group in the world that every single testimonial is run past compliance first. So you know that you can share them from there and they're safe. So with that in mind, that's where we're going to put this. In fact, it's in there already. I had it done while we were live on the event. So if you haven't done it, go to the NUMI New You group and we put a direct link from this event, which is live right now, in there so you can share it with all your contacts. And of course, if you go to the official YouTube channel, it's sitting there right there as well. You'll find that link by going to NUMI New You, clicking it, and you're on YouTube, and that's where it is, so you can share it from there. Someone asked if we could put it in the app, and certainly that's something I will put forward. I'd love to be able to click a button right now and do it myself. I don't have access, but I'll certainly put it to corporate that in the ensuing weeks, once they've tidied up the app, which we're doing right now, with some of that stuff, we'll get that added as well. So again, thank you so much, Johnathan. I think that was an amazing event. We want to see you on another one. And we'll look forward to seeing everyone on the next members night. All the best. Oh, and by the way, one reminder, Steve Scott will not be presenting tomorrow. Unfortunately, he is out of radio range. So we will not have Steve's founder call tomorrow. Good morning.